Good evening. So the meeting is called to order, and our first item, well, actually the second item on this agenda is the public hearing portion. But traditionally, throughout the budget season, we schedule a public hearing and we invite members of the public to come and express their concerns. And we're lucky to have many different department heads here tonight to answer questions from the public and perhaps from us if we have a few minutes and any unanswered questions. So first, I'd like to thank them for attending and taking time out of their busy schedules to come to the meeting.
Be honest with me, right?
So with that, are there any members of the public present who have any questions or comments on the FY16 budget?
Stand up and be quiet tonight.
Okay. All right.
Ray said I couldn't talk because I'm an elected official.
Okay. So I would like to take a moment. If anybody has any questions, I would just like to thank everybody, especially Lynn, for making it a very smooth and transparent process. That's very much like a duck paddling very swiftly underwater to make everything look like it's on the surface. Everything looks like it's easy and going swimmingly, and there's a lot of hard work, a lot of paddling going beneath the surface, and a number of people who are very involved and who spend a tremendous amount of time getting the budget ready. In the town manager's office, in the finance department and accountants departments, and all the department heads, and so. I think I can speak for the committee when I say that we received a very polished and well-edited and well-presented budget package this year, which makes the job of reviewing it quite easy. And at the 30,000-foot level, we think I think we've come to believe it's a good budget. It's sound. It meets the objectives that we set out as a group at the beginning of the year, and that the selectmen set out and the town manager set out, and I have a lot of good things to say about it, and I believe my committee members do as well. So with that, if there are any questions from members of the committee?
I want to echo what Bill said. In fact, it's so good it actually leads us to ask more kinds of questions. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. And so if the...
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
You could reset. I could reset. I'll do this for Ray's benefit now. Just to make Ray mad. Stan Libbert, 43 Stone Cleve Road. There's been a lot of talk, both this year and for this budget, about impacts from changes in the state budget. Right? We're dealing with issues this year, snow and ice issues, and there may be as yet unknown impacts on this budget, the FY16 budget. What, if any, discussions have you all had about how we'll respond to those impacts, whatever they are, in the budgeting process? It's kind of an unknown. I mean, normally we do a budget, we throw it over the transom to everybody, and then you guys, you're good, and we have town meeting, everybody votes, and then you walk away from it, and stuff happens. But maybe this is an opportunity to anticipate a little bit what the trade-offs might be or what the contingency planning might be, depending on what happens at the state level. Just saying it might be issues, priorities, whatever. Have you given that any thought as far as trying to help a little bit?
I would say that we always use very conservative estimates in terms of the amount and nature of the funds that we're going to receive from the state. And as far as I can tell, and I urge others to chime in, the only thing that we saw that might fall away this year is a $35,000 kindergarten grant in the school committee budget. We do have the governor's assurance that he would not trim local aid. There are some other aspects of the budget, I think, and circuit breaker and others that are always subject to the I will not say whims, because I have more respect for our state legislators than that, but the decisions that are made at the state level about that, and in terms of what decisions they're going to make on Beacon Hill.
And you all have talked about this, and we talk about this all the time. A lot of times, the politics dictate statements like that. We will not cut local aid. But often it's a shell game, right? Mm-hmm. True, doesn't happen, but money goes from someplace else to fill that gap. And so net, we end up with less money.
Sure, and our assessments could change, and I think we've made some reasonable assumptions about our assessments to the state, which are, as you say, another area where, the state taketh and the state giveth away. So there could be some action there. And then I do believe that our free cash balances from last year were favorable, and that we are building healthy reserves, and I would think, and I ask others to chime in, that we would be able to weather a reasonable size cut from the state, or a reasonable size increase in our assessments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's what we all are thinking about all the time now. It's like, what happens if, right? And it's what happens if we don't get all the money, and how do we deal with that? So just wondering.
So
Thanks.
Stan, just a point, though. I agree with everything Bill said. We start out with a revenue and fixed cost committee. We know the numbers that are presented in there are generally conservative based on the history as well as the forecast, and that's a healthy thing. The town manager's been extremely active in building reserves and wanting reserves. And the other thing that I think has to be looked at is we're not setting ourselves up with a foundation of operating costs that if something drastic happened, we would have to do significant cutting, because we're cautious as a town to do that kind of thing. So I think overall, the management of the town has done a great job in level streaming us with conservatism and some reserves in play. So,
well, as the town manager reminds us all, if you're trying to have a sustainable budget, you don't have big growth areas that could be subject to, downturns in the economy or downturns in the revenues. And he's been very good to that point. In the past, the way the revenue and fixed cost process worked was we would start out our budgeting process with a very conservative number and then have to sort of negotiate for more, right? He's been very fair with all of us, all the active departments, in giving us a good, solid number up front that we can work with, so we don't go through that process anymore. So I think it's been an enormous help in the budgeting process, and I think it's given me a lot more confidence that we would be able to deal with differences in the revenue side if we had to, because we've started kind of with a good, solid going-in position in terms of what we've been given by the town manager. And it's been a big help to the school department, enormous help in trying to, more easily budget and more reasonably budget. And, we certainly have been trying to listen to his mantra of sustainable town government, sustainable town activities. So we think about that all the time, too, when we put our budgets together. But, it's always a concern of mine is like, we can't predict, and should we be doing a little more what-ifing about, let's say, something does happen, or let's say the governor can't pull a rabbit out of a hat and make all the money show up when we need to. There's still this discussion about there's this giant budget deficit that he's going to have to cover. How's he going to do that? And, money's not, it doesn't grow on trees, so just wondering, and what are we thinking about in terms of...
Well, as a member of the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee, with you, I have to say that I pored over every line and every question just about that I had about what the basis of that number was. The response was, it's a very conservative number that's in there. It is based on either past experience or it's based on some very, very good judgment. So I have to say that I think it was very conservatively put together, and unless we have some big, crazy political swing, we are in great shape. And the reserves going forward, this is what's giving the ship some stability.
And again, I think the town manager taking that number and sort of distributing it to all the departments, all the operating departments in a very equitable fashion makes it easy for all the departments to know what they've got to work with and then work within that budget. I mean, there's no reason for us to come back with double that number because he's given us what we have. And so, there's no reason to say, I'd like twice that. I mean, it's like kids and allowances. Yeah, you like what you like, but we just don't have the money.
Well,
so.
you can actually see that when you look at the recommended budget and what department heads are asking for and what changes were made. And this year, there are very few changes. Maybe the year before last, there were more. And last year, a little less. And now there are very few. And I think that is the result of coming forward by
Absolutely.
Andrew,
Absolutely.
our town manager, with a
Right.
reasonable figure to begin with.
Well, and my impression from years past was it was more like a barter deal, right? I won't call it poker playing exactly, but it was, here's my first offer. No, that's not good enough. How about double that offer? No, I'll give you 1.5 times my original, with our current town manager, we just don't do that at all anymore.
Well,
It's like he gives us what appears to be a very reasonable and very realistic budget, and it would be foolish for us to do anything other than work with that budget. So we'd just be wasting everyone's time. So I think that's been an enormous help in the process. And to your point, Bill, it's been a whole new and much more transparent budgeting process. So I think it's made it better for all of us, the whole town and all the town departments.
I think there's a lot of certainty by all involved that the process is
Absolutely.
fair, which allows people to understand that what's tops on their list or their priority for a particular year and does not get picked up will get a second and fair look the next
Yes.
year. So I think
Yeah.
that allows people to be
Right.
logical, progressive, and build a good case and look for efficiencies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have to say, too, on the town manager's behalf, that he always seems open to listening to new inputs. Doesn't mean he'll do anything about it or can do anything about it, but he'll always, if you've got an idea or a plan or a need, he'll always listen to it. And, at least talk it through with you. He may not be able to do anything about it, but, maybe it goes on the list. And when, like you say, if we get around to it, that'll be on the list or something. So it's all going well, but still I worry about the revenue side.
Right.
I mean, that's out of our control, and if it goes a little haywire, then,
Right.
we're all sort of stuck. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If we have no further comment, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor? Okay. The public hearing is adjourned, and we will reconvene for the regular meeting in approximately 5 minutes.
So, Ray, aren't you happy that Stan got up there to ask the question?
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the second part of the Finance Committee meeting this evening, or the second Finance Committee meeting formally. Tonight, we're going to review and vote the fiscal year 16 budget, as much of it as we can, and we will go through and do that. If we could take a moment to talk about process. I think we, what we'll need is we'll need someone to make a motion to basically explain say, like, I move that we set the salaries as laid out. Well, it's kind of tricky because we don't really have it laid out very well.
We're going to do these.
We're not going to do these, but this is how this is organized.
Yeah, well, but where are the line items for the budget?
Would be the best spot.
You mean like, well, I mean, the line items, if you really wanted line items,
Yeah.
there's one line item for general government, line item for public safety. So starting on page, I don't know.
It's at page 46. That's what I thought. Okay.
Well, they have, I don't know
No,
what
you
they
don't
have.
have, you guys don't have the warrant book?
Well, you have, did,
You don't
what,
have the
yeah,
draft?
that,
Right,
what,
the draft.
what, yeah, the draft.
There's
So
the
if you
draft.
start at page 5, if you go to page 5, I mean, the budget is set up as groupings. So you have general government, public safety, education, public works, health and human services, culture and recreation,
Yeah.
support services, et cetera.
So we can just, and we've seen these before
Right.
in various
Right.
iterations.
In essence, what
But
the
this is
warrant's
just
going to show
yeah.
is your overall favorable action, unfavorable action, no action, or to be made at town meeting.
So
Those are
what
the 4 options.
You get right, and what we usually do is we'll just go line by line by line and approve that.
Sure.
Right.
No, I don't think you do, right? You didn't last year?
No.
No. You do that on the Capitol. I know that because
Yeah.
those are various individual projects. But I thought last year, and any other years of Finance Committee, in this meeting, typically just votes whether they're in favor of the budget or not based on each line item. Because, I mean, if you're saying you're in favor of the whole budget, that to be voted at town meeting, then you're in favor of all the line items.
Well,
Unless you're
Yes,
not.
That's presented, correct.
Okay, well, why go through the line items like we did in the capital budget if we don't need to?
Right, yeah,
Right.
you
Right.
don't have to.
Okay, all right, well then, fine, that makes it way easier, so.
Right.
I mean, at town meeting, the chairman will, when the motion's read, he's going to have to read the different groupings in the total. But in this meeting here, you don't need to do that.
I was just sort of following from the town manager's recommended budget, which has been our Bible for the
Yeah.
last several weeks. It does fall in line with the document.
Yes, it does.
It should be exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
Perfect. That's the kind of thing that if we're voting, we need to make sure that it's
Right.
consistent.
No numbers change
Oh,
whatsoever.
That's mine, but that's yours.
Great.
Page 61.
Yeah, if we start out, for example, I mean, you could look at every line, or you could just go to total general government, you can see that the recommended budget for the town manager is the same as in the article.
Right.
So it's 2355457,
Yep.
57, same
They add
number.
up. I mean, they're the same, so. Shall we? That would be on page 51 of your recommended budget, page 51.
Okay.
That's also there.
Is it 51? That's
Yeah,
what-
that's another different summary.
Yes, it's another different summary. So we have dealt with this material that looks just like this in our recommended budget book. We have been going department by department through. So,
I do like the idea of us putting on record that we want to be in favor of general government budget as,
Right.
I know you have flexibility during the year. We vote for the whole overall operating budget, there's flexibility, but we just want to make sure that people know this is what we looked at.
And as Lynn said, that's going to be the motion at town meeting. You're actually
Right.
going to, the motion being read by the chair of the finance committee is general government at blah, 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 public works at blah, blah, blah,
So let's
so
vote.
forth and so on.
Okay.
So let's vote. Let's go with it.
Okay. So we'll start on,
Do we want to, does everyone have their books or here? I move to accept the budget for fiscal year 2016 for the general government of $2,355,457 as drafted in the, as documented in the draft articles as well as in the town manager's recommended budget.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adjourn?
No.
No, we're gonna do,
We have a lot more budget items to work on.
we're gonna start right here, public safety.
I don't mind if someone else, I don't mind going. So, I move to accept the budget for the public safety of $10,432,514 as published in the town manager's recommended budget, as well as in the draft warrant articles.
All in favor?
Seconded.
Oh, second.
Okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
On the, I'll skip the public, the education for a second. Maybe save the best for last. On the budget of public works of $4,042,958, I move to accept the budget as documented in the town manager's recommended budget, as well as in the draft warrant articles.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Health and Human Services, I move to recommend the budget of $1,220,533 for fiscal year 16, as recommended by the town manager in his budget, as well as documented in the draft town warrant.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
This is what I meant when I thought, when I was saying, go through it line by line.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
So
what I meant.
it's
And-
working.
Okay, well, fine.
Okay.
All right. Great. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
I move to accept the culture and recreation budget fiscal year 16 of $974,850 as recommended by the town manager in his budget, as well as documented in the draft warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Support services, I move to recommend the budget of $1,564,360,000 for fiscal year 16, as documented in the town manager's budget, as well as in the draft warrants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'll go to the education. I move to accept the budget of $43,612,479 as recommended for fiscal year 16 for the education budget, as recommended by the school committee as well as the town manager, as documented in the town manager's budget, and as well as in the draft town warrant.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Guys, is it the same?
Oop.
Am I missing something here?
Yep, may I move to reconsider for a second?
Sorry.
No, that's a good point.
Do you see, where,
There is
I am
a-
seeing education is 43,612,479.
Where
Well,
is
we
the
have-
457,798?
I'm looking on the recommended budget
Perfect.
as 44 million.
When you include the regional school assessments.
School assessments.
So that we'll get to that.
Am I looking at, I'm looking at the wrong place?
No, on the second page, there's another line item.
Right.
So you're missing.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you.
Thank you
So,
very much.
just in terms of the motion to reconsider,
I take that back.
okay.
Confusion is over. On the debt service, I move to accept the town manager's budget for fiscal year 16 of $5,858,518 as documented in the town manager's budget, as well as the draft town warrant articles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay. I'm just sort of looking at some of these, because they look consolidated. On the employee benefits, I'm going to go through them real fast, just making sure we have each of the line items covered in the detailed budgets that were represented. But in the employee benefits total of $15,498,811 for fiscal year 16, there was a retirement assessment of $4,071,413. Workers' comp. I'll pass for a second.
Sure.
So this is where we're going to pause for a second, guys, because I want to make sure all these numbers are in there. I see 10,202, 420.
$10,202,420, 10 million.
10 million, I'm sorry, 10,000.
10 million, yeah.
10 million.
10 million.
Yep.
I am missing a few that are probably somewhere else, right?
I think it's the share cost, the 1.2 million.
Is that where it all comes?
Well, I'm not good at math anymore.
I can do that.
And what page you want?
On the budget, it's 51, and looking at the page 7 of the warrant, I think Thomas was pretty much on target relative to 123,
That's the 1.5.
500 plus the, it's 451,
It's 4 bucks.
78.
We'd have to go to police and...
Okay, I've resolved it, because, yeah. Okay, there is, the numbers from the draft town warrant article, 351, 478, the 100,000, the 650,000, and the 123,500, total to 1,224,978 as documented in the town manager's detailed budget. And
Assured.
and I am, therefore, the sum total of $15,498,811 as drafted in the town warrant does agree to the detail of the town manager's budget, and I move to accept it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Liability insurance of $444,071 is documented in both the draft town warrant article and in the detailed town manager's budget for fiscal year 16. I move to accept that number as documented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
This is not this.
For the regional schools assessment, as detailed in the town manager's budget for fiscal year 16 of $457,798, and in the draft town warrant articles, I move to accept the number as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, we gotta do some
It's
reserve.
two. It's two. Actually, 1,900,000.
Perfect. In the detailed budget, the town manager's presented for fiscal year 16 for the reserves and overlay, two numbers of $1,436,063 and $550,000. Agree to the draft warrant article of $1,986,063. A move to accept the number as presented in both the budget as well as.
So,
Sorry,
okay.
I moved to accept the numbers.
The 19?
Oh, I'm sorry, the $1,986,063.
Okay, without further,
Yep.
okay.
It agrees to what we've seen.
I know, but it has a stipulation that it goes to the capital stabilization fund. I mean, the special education stabilization, which I don't know that we
Our party, good point.
were going to wait.
Right.
So I withdraw that motion, and we'll hold on that.
Okay.
Until next week. Okay, I think we can.
About as far as we can go?
We could-
Mr. Chair, if I may, you're going to vote the individual, the transfers to stabilizations, you're going to vote separately anyways. So if you go ahead and vote the overall budget, you'll always have an opportunity next week to rescind or re-examine your vote based on what you decide on the stabilization articles, because these are the amounts that are reflected in those individual articles, both the SPED as well as the regular stabilization, and the capital stabilization as well.
I feel, I respectfully submit that I think we just need a little bit more comfort with the language before we move forward. I don't know if anyone feels differently. Okay.
I don't think it's going to take any more time.
My only concern is you're really not going to, I was going to wait till the end and ask you to respectfully vote favorable, recommend favorable action for the entire budget, but you're not going to be able to do that tonight because now you've left a portion out.
Right.
So they can vote favorable on the 86,902,50.
Right.
Well, that's not
Right,
but
and
that's
we can do the enterprise funds.
So stop here.
We'll hold off on that.
So that just means it's, even though it's looking at that policy.
See one more thing, I've got everything else done.
Oh, no, we did it.
Okay.
No. Just having to match this up with
Okay.
that. And they did a good job in a couple of.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more item I'd like to vote on.
For, at least from the general fund budget. The state assessments budget of $460,309 as detailed in the fiscal year,
You don't have to vote the assessments.
because that's that's locked down.
Right, because it doesn't get voted at town meeting, it's an assessment, and if
Yeah,
if
right.
it's higher than what we put in our budget, we just have to cover it.
Okay.
So it's not a voted item. Basically, the 86,902,350 is what will get voted at town meeting under this particular article. And then the capitals and reserves will get voted on separate articles, which we'll discuss later.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Where does that leave us now?
Do we want to go forward into the enterprise funds? I think we can do that.
Now can I make the motion to adjourn?
Do you want to do the enterprise funds?
Guess we could.
Okay, let's do the water source Stevens Estate.
So, Mr. Chair, could you at least vote favorable action on the 86 million as a total, 86 and change as a total that you've already individually voted, so that that will be reflected in the warrant? The proper verbiage of favorable action.
I can't make a motion, but I can consider one. I will consider it. Does anyone want to make a motion relative to the $86,902,350 in the annual town meeting number?
I will, since we've actually covered everything.
Yeah, you think so?
Chris, you want to have the honor?
I make a motion we accept as printed in, I should say, in the managers.
Explained it.
The annual town meeting vote for the budget of $86,902,350.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's good.
Thanks, Ray. That was good.
Okay.
One more piece done.
All right. So, let's, page 9 in the draft warrant. You can take a look at that.
Okay, so that would be page 67 in the budget, recommended budget book.
It's also on page 67.
67, yep.
Okay. If there's in the detailed budget, it's page 67, and on the warrant is page 9.
Right.
Okay.
I guess it looks, yep. Both of them.
Do you have a motion?
Okay. I move to accept the Water Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 16 as recommended by the town manager of $5,322,268,000. It's also detailed in his detailed budget plan for the year.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. On page 10 and also on page 67, the sewer enterprise fund.
I move to accept the sewer enterprise budget of fiscal year 16 as presented by the town manager in the draft town warrant articles, as well as in his detailed budget of, again, $4,514,936.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have one more. Page 11. And also on page 67.
Yes, it is.
Just a preliminary note, I'm really pleased with where the Stevens Estate's been going for the last couple of years. It's a nice little jewel. I move to accept the fiscal year 16 budget for the Stevens Estate at Osgood Hill Enterprise of $322,682 is presented by the town manager for fiscal year 16 as documented in the draft warrant articles as well as his detailed budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think the capital plan on page 12. Has this been amended to reflect? Well, we can actually take a look and see.
No, it's good.
So I'm going back to your end.
Why don't you, may I recommend that you put off the CIP till next week? Because as the manager has discussed with you, he has
There's a
some
change.
further information on the facilities master plan
Sure.
line item.
That's what I was gonna, I just wanted to check and see if it was reflected or not.
This is-
Okay, we'll hold off on this.
Yep.
And all the others are transfers.
Want to do some of the ones at the beginning?
Personally, I would feel more comfortable taking action with kind of the full gamut of stabilization and trust funds, but if anyone has a motion, I'll certainly listen to it.
I'd like to take a look still at these articles. I mean, I'm comfortable with the budget and things like that, but I would like just getting them at the start of the meeting. I'd rather to go do my due diligence of trying to.
So these would be the ones that we're going to put over.
Right.
I was just talking about the cookie cutter ones, like
Right.
number 3 and number 13.
Well, we can, I think we can take those up
those up in
next
short
time.
order next week.
Because we do have new members and they're not familiar with 3 and 13. So it just, I think it's nice if we can just sort of familiarize them with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, Article 30, are there any changes to previous year?
From,
For
Article 13,
Article 13.
the salaries.
no. You mean the
Unchanged.
salaries for
Yeah.
elected officials? No.
it's unchanged.
No, that's voted, no. The last time those were changed were 7, 8 years ago, when health insurance was taken away from elected officials. So an adjustment was made to their stipends.
Well, we have to cut it off somewhere.
Right, okay. Okay, so we'll be very clear about what we have left to accomplish, and we'll make the agenda reflect that. So I'll be in touch, we'll be in touch about the agenda over email so we can get it posted by Friday. So if you have any thoughts on the agenda between now and Friday, let's just say at noontime on Friday, I will email Patty with any agenda items so we have enough time on the posting
Are we
for next
going?
Wednesday. And then I would argue that, I don't know, I mean, I guess we have a question of when our next meeting is. We could do it next Monday. My preference would be to try to do a lot next Wednesday and just push through, so hopefully that we're not holding anybody up at that point. And then if we decide next Wednesday that we do not have enough, that we need another meeting, we can vote another meeting next Wednesday for the following Monday. And we'll still keep all the trains on schedule.
Is there any problem with the following Tuesday instead of Monday the 13th, Tuesday the 14th?
14th is the adjusted meeting schedule for the selectmen. Their April 6th meeting has been moved to April 14th.
But you can get along with that, man.
We should get it done next week. We just bring your coffee, sit down, let's just get through it.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I also have a question regarding the outline of the speaking points. What are the expectations that you would like? I mean, it
Well,
looks good, but it's pretty comprehensive as well.
Right. So my thought on the recommendations would be that, perhaps we could take a minute tonight, and I know I sent them out via email, and I can send them out again as a document, but in fact, if I could, instead of logging onto my computer on live TV, if I could take a look. What I would argue is, or what I would propose is that perhaps we each take a section of the proposed recommendations and individually kind of write it up, and then over email, submit it. We can include it with the meeting materials for next week, and then our journey will be that much further along. We'll have something to react to and edit on the 8th, and then hopefully we can have it in final form on the 8th and vote it on the 15th.
Okay.
So basically, and I'm sorry that not everybody has it in front of them, but I will. Would anyone like to do an overview of the process? Because I figure we should start with a kind of a nice meaty paragraph on the process, talking about the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee, our hearings, and our review. Anybody step up for that? All right. Maybe I'll just have to be directive. How about this? Susan, would you do the process section?
Absolutely.
Okay. I would like to do the big picture section. Does anyone want that one?
Well, that's a big job, though. That's two people. So what I would say is, let me wing
Okay.
that with you. So.
All right. So we got Chris and Bill on the big picture. The reserve section.
I like to do
Tim?
the reserve.
Okay.
Because I've been the one making the noise on it.
It's a special project.
The school committee.
Okay. The next section is the capital budget. Thomas, I feel that you would be particularly well suited to the capital budget section.
I like that, yeah.
Okay.
I was actually volunteering for a couple.
Okay, good. Okay, the operating budget.
What did you have in mind for that?
Karen, I had Karen in mind for that.
I didn't say who, it had what, but that's okay.
Oh, I just had like a,
Fine.
what I thought was up top, we'd kind of explain our, we'd explain our process. And in the operating part, we would say, it would kind of be a little reflective, where we'd say, these were the types of points we had when we were thinking about the operating budget as a committee back before we had a budget to react to, and this is how we felt that, it achieved those major goals.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a good, I think some of those early meetings we had in the room there, we're kind of going over that document. That might be a good source for sort of drawing from that, for that narrative, I think.
And then
Questions?
the comparable table, I actually found a nice guide, and I looked it up right before I left on vacation, and I will try to get it out to everybody. But the Massachusetts Taxpayers Association puts together a little booklet with all sorts of information, kind of town by town. And so I will volunteer to procure 9 copies of said document. And I actually got one for free, and I lost it. But I'll procure a couple copies of those, and I could at least start that table based off their information, because I think I might actually be able to walk to their office from my office in town. recommendations, I don't know that that's where I said, do we have consensus with Board of Selectmen and town meeting? I think that will be kind of woven in, and we've already agreed to,
We'll come to a conclusion.
we'll come to a conclusion one way or another, so we might not need anyone on that. Then there are two sections left. One is kind of a looking forward section, where we could consider a few things like, are there any areas where we're seeking efficiencies in coming years? This is kind of like, okay, we got this whole thing together, and here's what we're thinking about for fiscal year 17. Because many of us will still be around, as long as we're in the good graces of our
I hope we're all going to be around.
our newly elected town manager with his significant mandate, might have different ideas, but hopefully we'll be back. So I think that section would be, hey, here's some areas we would like people to think about. After the gavel closes on town meeting. Marta? Okay. And then the thanks section. I would volunteer to handle that because I want to make sure that I do that, and I will, of course, solicit your feedback. This is my wife might note. I am not the master of etiquette, but I will try my hardest to.
Well, we're counting on Susan.
Yes.
Give it to me when it's done.
Right.
Use a few hours before the meeting.
Okay. And then we should. I put you down on the email with a few direct things. We should write an active tense. Right. Anything else? Should we use we or second person or third person?
I think we should do
We, okay. We, so second person, we'll use we. I like that. The royal we, yes, so we the people. Okay.
I just had one comment. There were a number of things throughout the process of this year that Chris had mentioned, and I wished I wrote them all down, but they were very insightful when we would be going through things, and you had said, I hope that someone says this at town meeting, or I hope that the town understands, that this is, and I think, I kept making little notes, yeah, we should really I don't know where, though, in the outline that those would go, but I just thought that there were a number of really good things that, I know one had to, well, you know what they are more specifically, but if we could include them, and I don't know the things that the town manager will say, because he always has a nice,
Right.
many nice things to say with the overview and different things, so I don't want to, conflict with that, but I just thought throughout the year there were some things that you had mentioned that I thought should be included.
What you thought the town people would like to know, should know about how our government works, or some of the very good things that we've done in town government that are easy to overlook. And you identified them beautifully.
So I got to go find those again in my brain. Unfortunately, I've got. So
No, when you
so
go through this, it will.
We'll kind of flush it out. So we'll talk, and then I think that's a nice idea because, again, in my mind, I love this, but I always think at the same time there's an overlay, which is kind of the everyday man, to use a simple term, just somebody who's not engaged, but says, hey, I want to show up to town meeting and I have no idea what's going on. Can we have someplace in here that says, hey, here's the value and here's really what you've got for your investment in this community? And somehow we can weave that in here a little bit. And that's, I think, the picture. I think as a committee we can figure out how to sort that in there. Appreciate it.
And I know my little section is, looking to the future, so
Yeah.
I could give a perspective from the things that I've heard at the meetings, but I'm just one person. So I would not mind if you had something from this year that you felt was established and moving forward, if you would like to send that to me, I would like to include that in my little paragraph or so.
That would be great. Thank you, Margaret.
So.
Okay. One thing you suggest is focusing as well on the school budget. And the transition to performance-based budgeting, which is on page 7 of the document we received from the school committee, I think that's a critical thing. And somehow they're going to try, I mean, this is more forward-looking. They're going to try to connect the dots between our investment and the performance of the students. And I think that's critical, performance of the teachers as well. So I would look forward to that in the future as an item I'd expect them to report upon. This is our objectives, this is how we measured against it, this is how we got to change things.
Not that I want you to write lines, but if you put a line together, because what happens is I'll look at this and I'll go, what did he want? And I want to make, no, I want to make sure if someone has an idea or a thought, that it's included in here in the way that you would like to see it. Instead of I write it and go, what was she listening to?
And the beauty of this is that, if this is our first swing at it, so next year, now it's kind of connect the dots, right? So hopefully next year, then we can look back and go, okay, here are the things we talked about. How did we do? Here's your measure. I would also, I guess, pose to the whole committee, is there something that we would want to hear from the community that we either should have addressed or should have addressed more in depth? I mean, there's an opportunity for folks to have discourse with us here, and there's been very little, which I would like to have seen more of our community engaged. I know things are going well, it's all wonderful, but that doesn't mean there aren't other good ideas, there aren't other thoughts, there aren't other concerns that we may not be seeing. So I think that's a little bit of the challenge to us to get people to reach to us.
And I think too, if we add to the general statement at the beginning, we could also, we have talked about doing we have 5 minutes if we wanted to present an overview. We could throw a few slides up, and that could be first among them, or last, or.
I think that'd be good. It's your chance to engage that. And I think our town, deserves that, and that's why we're here.
I agree.
To do that.
The comment that Stan made earlier, I think it was a pretty broad question that he asked, like, what if? And how would you prepare? How would you? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
And the town, I think, is very well prepared for that, I think. But I think they're getting that message out to the community. So if they get some sort of feeling for it is excellent. So to your point, just leading up with that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And I think that the multiplicity of actors saying similar things is very helpful. I go back to my teaching background, and a lot of it is, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, and and that helps too. Yeah. Do we have a motion?
Can I make a motion to? Make a motion to adjourn. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. You can so adjourn. Thank you.